Listen, locker room, listen closely to what I'm about to say. All right. This final stretch, these last 4 weeks in the European League of Football are about to be cinematic. The playoff race is about to be cinematic. Let's talk about it.
We doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta toss them.
A epic, a cinematic last 4 weeks that the league has given us as we head down the final stretch of the European League of Football. Remember, there's only about 3 games left. You got week 10, week 11, week 12 is the entire bye, 13, 14, so 4 weeks left, so my apologies. But these last 4 games are about to be cinematic. But we're not here to talk about those games just yet. This is week 10 picks and previews, right? We're going to discuss this week's slate of game. You know how this works. Drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Let's talk about it because it's an interactive show. And if you haven't already, subscribe. I appreciate everyone's support. This is a fun week. As you look here on the graphic, you can see the slate of games. We got a full slate of games. I think everyone is all board for this week. And we got some good ones, and we're going to talk about them. That first one I want to dive into, Vienna versus the Panthers. Panthers finally got a win versus a team with a winning record. That was a big win in Prague they had last week, a real gutsy win, a real gritty win against the Prague Lions. And you know what? Good for them. Good for them. But now you got the big dogs. You got the top team in the league, the most complete team in the league, the Vienna Vikings that's run the East, the Vienna Vikings that since being in the league, they've always had a first-round bye. They've always been the top dog. Coming to your crib in Poland. How are you going to play knowing that your playoff hopes are on the line, right? This is DJ Irons' second time going up against a big dog. Remember, he's 0-2 against Jadrian. Now he has Ben VP coming to town. This is going to be – no, it's not going to be that interesting. I lied. I think Panthers will give a tough battle, but the Vikings are too much. Vikings are too much. One thing we have seen, though, Vikings struggled last week versus Jalen Henderson. How does DJ Irons use what he saw last week to implement that into his game? We shall see. We shall find out. I'm rocking with the Vikings to win this one. All right. Frankfurt versus Cologne. I'm not going to keep you here forever on this one. We already know we're rocking with the Galaxy. Jamison Wang, young star in the making, right? Great performance last week versus a surge defense that gives a lot of people some issues, right? So how does he capitalize on that? I don't think he'll have any issues against the Cologne Centurions. Frankfurt secondary, how do you bounce back from last week, in my opinion, right? This is a secondary that, for me, has failed me twice because I thought they'd be real good last year. I thought they'd be real good this year. And you know what? I fell for the trap. But this should be an easy win this weekend. I'm not going to keep you guys here too long. We're rocking with the Galaxy. The locker room is rocking with the Galaxy this week. Next game we got. In my opinion, this is the game of the week. Munich versus the Raiders of Tyrol, right? Versus the Raiders of Tyrol. The Munich Ravens, the flock, took a week off last week. Malik Stanley didn't play. Justin Rodney barely played. They took a week off versus Helvetic. It is what it is, all right? Now you got the Raiders. You could basically lock up the division with a win this week if you're the Munich Ravens. Raiders had a bye. Had a much-needed bye, a much crucial bye coming off that big win versus the Fire. Did it slow you down, or is that momentum carrying, right? We're starting to see this team kind of come full, like they're about to embark on another 8-4 season. Deep into the playoff race. This is going to be a tough game. Munich always has good rivalries. When you think of Munich Surge, when you think of Munich Raiders, this is going to be a great game. This is probably my favorite rivalry. Looking forward to it. Russell Tabor, a lot different from when he was week one. Raiders also a lot different from who they were week one. How do they game plan against against N'Kosi Perry, who they're familiar with? Remember last year, Munich sent the Raiders home to get into the playoffs. This could be a little different. This is 50-50 for me. I'm not even going to lie to you, but I'm going to rock with the flock. I'm rocking with the Ravens to take the win in this game. As we head to the Sunday slate, again, we got a full stack of games. We got Nordic Storm versus the Berlin Thunder. All right, this is the OG matchup. Again, Jadrian versus Jacob. I'm not going to keep you long with this one. I don't think Berlin matches well with Nordic. Too much firepower. Listen, I got to give a shout-out to that defense. Listen, you know who you are. You know who you are, who I'm talking about, right? I'm going to give a shout-out to that Nordic defense. I praised Jadrian a lot last week, and rightfully so. But that Nordic defense gave up only 10 points to the Rhine Fire. They basically shut them down, right? I don't see having any issues against Jacob and the Berlin offense in this one. I do like Tyler Foster. I like how he's been getting busy lately, all right? And he's probably playing his way to sign with a contender next year, right? But Nordic is going to win this game, and just because of that, I'm rocking with Nordic defense in my fantasy pick. You know who you are. You know what I'm talking about. All right, I had to give you guys some credit. All right, Madrid versus Helvetic. Listen, a little bad blood how this one ended last week. Obviously, when you think about the hit on Resonet by DeMarcus Artis, I think Madrid might be out for revenge. And I don't say revenge coming off a loss. I say revenge because I think people were saying this game was close last game. I think Madrid's out to prove a point. Madrid has to win out from here on out, right? I don't think they'll have problems with Helvetic, but you are going to get a different type of Helvetic team that has more experience in the secondary. It'd be interesting to see how everything pans out. I'm rocking with Madrid in this game. Ryan Fire versus the Hamburg Sea Devils. Ryan Fire slept on the Raiders, lost, right? Was focused on that Nordic game. Unfortunately, didn't pull it out, right? Do you sleep on the Hamburg Sea Devils knowing who they are and what they've gone through? Hamburg coming off a bye, right? Played Nordic well before that bye. Maybe the tide's turning in Hamburg, all right? How are they going to bounce back and continue that momentum in the regular season and play spoilers? Because they could spoil the Ryan Fire season this week, right? This week. Now, is Hamburg going to beat Ryan? Probably not. I'm just being honest. Probably not. But you know what? I'm going with them anyway. I'm taking a shot. Who cares, right? I'm rocking with the Sea Devils to get the win. I think they bounce off that momentum, or they bounce off that momentum they had against that Nordic game, going into the Fire. They're at home, playing in a different crib. We'll see how this one pans out. Another game. We got a great game Saturday, another great game here Sunday. Paris versus the Surge. Paris is in an interesting stretch, right? Interesting stretch, because they really should have won that game versus Vienna. Not saying they deserved it, but in terms of they were going to split, it's easy to split the home game versus the away game. Now you're going up against a Surge team that, I'm going to be honest, their season's about to start. They've been very vanilla this year. They really haven't even played their best ball yet. Coming off, they're home at the crib, coming off a 6-0 loss earlier in the season at Paris. They want this game. They've been circling this game. They've been waiting for this game. You're gonna get the full Surge experience in this game, right? We'll see how everything pans out. This one's a hard one to pick, and it's gonna put Paris in the bind here if it happens. But I'm rocking with the Surge. You just made big moves. Jordan Bua, Kenny Floret, added to the secondary, added to that receiver group, an already loaded receiver group. The Surge are potentially about to take off and shock the league. So I'm rocking with the Surge in this game. And then the last one on the slate, Anthronos versus Prague. Listen, Prague probably have the easiest slate out of the rest of the teams heading for that playoff. You got the Anthronos, you got Frankfurt. I can't think off the top of my head who else they have. But they're done with their league, their division after this game. They would have played everyone twice, so it's going to be interesting to see how Prague finishes the season down the stretch. But it'll be interesting. But I'm going to rock with Prague to win this game. So those are the picks and previews for Week 10. Another thing I wanted to dive into, and I don't have the stats in front of me, so I'm going to go off the dome a little bit, but I will put the graphics on the page. So the first thing we're going to look at is this playoff race. You look at the teams. You look at the matchups. Remember, they still got to reschedule that Nordic Helvetic game, and I'm assuming Nordic is going to win. Nordic is going to win. And that makes it interesting for the first two in the bye weeks, right? Because right now you have, I believe, it's the Vikings and the Ravens, and once Nordic gets into the mix, it's going to bump a team out. But you look at the statistics of guys that still ends technically, right? You see the stats. All these teams, all these wildcard teams that are fighting for that sixth spot, all play each other one way or another. You think Madrid, you still got Frankfurt. Madrid has Frankfurt, Raiders, and Munich. They control their own destiny. All right. You think of Frankfurt, you got Madrid, you got Prague, again, all playoff hopes, right? Other teams that are in contention, the Raiders, right? You got Madrid, you got Munich, you got the Fire. That's a tough slate too. Munich can basically lock up, in my opinion, not officially, but lock it up with a win this week. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But everything is pretty much still open. Paris, right? You got the Surge this week. You got Vienna. You got Helvetic. You got Cologne, I believe. Teams that, you can easily get wins on, but, you go Vikings, Surge, and then obviously the Vikings again at some point. You gotta take advantage of those big games. And granted, you've had a tough schedule, but there's no excuses when it comes to football. We all know that. We look at this playoff race, and it is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. You guys drop a comment. Let me know what you all think. who has a good chance to make the to make the playoffs? What team are you rooting for? What team, who controls their own destiny? The West is up for grabs. The South is technically up for grabs with teams that control their own destiny. Do we get a second team from the East, which would be the first time that's ever happened, right? Who's going to cannibalize themselves between the Fire and Nordic? But I think Nordic technically is already in based on, schedule and, who they play. Listen, I said in the beginning of the show, these last 4 weeks in the ELF season is going to be cinematic. It's going to be epic. You all should tune in, drop a comment, let me know what you think. Athletes Forum Podcast.